Kyle Tierman here. I'm in Cape Town.
I was the only journalist in northern Nigeria.
Not an adventure until you get lost in Tijuana.
If you get caught inside by a giant wave, you feel really alone.
I love the adventure of waking up and not knowing what will happen and that being my job.
Christopher Keener.
Kyle Tierman.
Good to see you, my friend. We are in the stewed. They
Couple of stewed dudes.
I know this is gonna be a quick one because you gotta head out in not too long. So let's start with the hook. What was the lowest moment of your last year?
Oof. It just happened last week. Low is relative, right? 'Cause
Sure.
There's low that's like, I don't even know why I went through that, and that just sucks, and it's hard to mine the positive meaning from that and the gold from it, or it will take a couple of years till I know why I went through that crap. But then there's the like specific low where it's like, this is so shitty and hard, and that happened last week, where I was in a So I did this thing called the Boulder Outdoor Survival School last week. And they have week-long, 2-week-long, month-long immersions. And what they do is they drop you in the middle of Canyonland, Utah. This is kind of near Zion National Park in that area there, Boulder, Utah. And it's harsh country. It's high desert. It's cold and it's hot. And nature provides. So, they teach you how to survive out there and how to be out there without a sleeping bag, without a light, without fire, without a stove, without a tent. And they, very capable instructors, take you out there and at some points kind of leave you leave you on your own. And so I found myself one night with no blankets, 10,000 feet. It's about 40 degrees outside, and just praying for the morning as I restlessly laid on cold, hard ground. And this was early in the trip, so I hadn't been taught any of the survival skills yet. So I was like a newborn baby, just laying there crying to no one.
Yeah. They're like, well, 90% of the guys die on the first night, but if you make it past that, it'll be
kind of
really satisfying. Okay.
So threshold moment, right? Anything worth the way to get you to learn anything, or the way to get you to move through, to transform from who you are to the next level of being, almost always involves a threshold moment, a difficult experience where you go through some kind of catharsis and you have to go through something hard. Well, this program is set up that way by design, and the program it started in 1968. Like it was a program at BYU that a lot of like troubled youth would go, and they'd take them out in the woods.
Sure.
And this is the beginning of that whole
Yeah,
idea.
very effective.
Super effective. So anyway, it was way harder than I thought it would be. Have you ever spent the night just kind of
just spent it without the blankets,
like in
or
cold in the blankets in the wood? No blankets.
I've always had a sleeping bag. I did do a course with a guy named Jack Harrison who showed me, if you don't have blankets, what to do, and one is to not sleep on a cold hard surface.
Yeah.
But like, do not sleep on stone. Try and find tree duff or something to buffer you from what will a cold surface, which will be a conduit into your skin.
Exactly.
So
It'll remove the heat from
you
your
learned
body.
that on the second or third night, I take it.
I didn't sleep for the first couple nights.
Wow.
And so I was pushing 72 hours of delirium.
Okay, so build this scene for me a little bit more. So you're out in Zion.
Yes.
And huge
area,
Zion area, massive national park.
Yeah.
And is it similar to where we were for your bachelor party?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Gorgeous.
As beautiful as it gets.
Yeah. And are you with a bunch of other guys, or do they just make you go off
guys,
solo?
gals, right?
Okay.
There's 10 of us in the, I think it started with 11, and then whittled down to 10. So most of us made it, but there's 3 instructors, two lead instructors, and then a kind of intern instructor. But these folks are well weathered and worn, and they have like hobbit feet, and they don't wear shoes. I mean, they know how to survive out there, which is very humbling to be out there with these really capable people. And the rest of us, again, newborn babies, we don't know our ass from our hand out there. Surprisingly so. I do a lot of camping. I'm an outdoor person. I feel very capable, but the difference is to go out and they take you out, and the idea is like, okay, what happens if your van breaks down out here and you're 100 miles from anywhere, and how do you get by? And so that's the precept that you go in with, and then they kind of coach you through it slowly so that you go through the process of learning just how bad it can be and what the risks are, and then also start to feel held by nature and start to see opportunities in nature and start to see things like, oh, those pine needles on the ground are probably really useful.
Right.
And that's that sage wood is really good for fires because it burns fully, and all kinds of delectable little treats that are all around you in nature at all times that you might miss and do miss on a cursory hike in the woods.
Sure. From what I understand, it's hypothermia is the big risk for dying in the wilderness.
Yeah.
So the first night, did they just not teach you anything and they said, all right, enjoy? Like, how did that work that you were so cold that you were not sleeping?
Yes.
Yes to all of it?
Yeah.
Fuck.
By design, I mean, again, they coax you into the experience. They want you to have the experience. So yes, the first, little the first few days, and so you experience a lot. And then they bring in more knowledge as the week goes on, or as the month goes on in the case of the longer programs. So very beautifully designed. I think it's designed to, certainly I reached my breaking point that first night. I mean, I'm just wandering around like the black of night praying for sleep, but I know it's not coming. So I was just like a zombie, just like wandering around in the dark, and there's no light. I mean, you don't have a headlight, you don't have anything. So it's just. And
are you with these instructors and with all the other people?
The other people are around and
trying to sleep.
You kind of assume they're sleeping because, no one could be going through what you're going through.
Yeah, of course.
But it turns out nobody was really sleeping.
What were the top few most valuable things you learned from a new skills perspective?
From a new skills, I would say certainly how to build a bed, how to warm yourself, how to conduct, like make sure your heat doesn't just leave your body, as you're saying. Don't sleep on cold ground. I mean, that's just going to sap the, heat will move towards the larger body, and the earth is plenty big enough to suck all your heat out. So if it's even a little colder than you, that can be a problem. So you want to insulate beneath you. That was a big one. Certainly, like how to look for water sources. So there's a great little heuristic little cheat, which is the in 3 seconds in a survival situation, you can make a bad decision and die. In 3 minutes, you need to make sure you're breathing and your vitals are good. In 3 hours, what's the 3 hours one?
Well, I know it's 3 days without water.
3 days without water.
3 weeks
3
without
weeks
food.
without food. 3 months without a friend. Right. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah. So it's kind of looking out for those things. And then, making fire is pretty cool.
Did you learn how to make
before? Yeah, I make fire.
What did you make it with?
Sticks.
And what was the strategy?
So it was a bow drill fire.
Okay.
Right. So bow drills tend to start a lot easier if you're rubbing sticks together. Friction fires can be very, very challenging. People make it look easy on YouTube, but it's very challenging to do. Even the bow drill can be really tough.
It seems like doing an impressive whistle in that way, where once you learn how to do it, you can do it every time. Yeah. But before that happens, it just seems
you spend hours on YouTube
like
watching
magical.
People trying to do it.
Dude, the first time I got the whistle where you put both your hands in, immediately felt my testicles drop like 3 centimeters. I was like, I think I'm a man.
Kyle became a man that
I
day.
think that was the moment I became a man, when I could do the loud fucking whistle. I did it like 4 more times. Someone was like, shut up. I'm like, okay. So,
I could see you being really loud for a long time with that thing. But can you retain it? Did you?
yeah, I can do the whistle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I learned it and then lost it. And
Yeah. I mean, I haven't done it in a while, so
I could
we'll
get
see.
it back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we try now?
No.
So yeah, bow drill fire is super cool.
Okay.
And you carve the spindle. You carve the bow out of a wood like a birch. That's a river, river water loving wood. So that's a little bit more bendy. You put your put your line in there.
And then what about water sources? How did you?
I mean, water sources is kind of obvious stuff, but it's like once you start looking, for
drink your
plants,
urine first, then.
Well, first of all, if you get a good water purification kit, you wouldn't believe the stuff you can drink.
Oh, it's amazing.
And water with life in it is a good thing. So we came upon our first water source, and a lot of people like got a little faint, and because they were looking at what we were about to drink, and that's a sign of life. That's good. That means there's not arsenic in the water, right? If there's lots of life in there, and your treatment will get rid of it. So like a chlorine dioxide treatment or an iodine, but iodine tastes bad, so ideally not doing that. But anyway, we also just like looking for green, like lighter green foliage is a way to spot water, right? So the darker will tend to be less water loving, and the lighter greens will. Sure. So if you're looking in a valley and you see a lot of like light green foliage, it's probably, there's a fair shake you're going to find some water down there.
And if you have the choice, larger, faster moving bodies of water are the best.
Yeah.
So if you see the difference between a little dribbly stream and a big rushing stream, chances are the big rushing one's going to be cleaner.
And if you're in that part of the world, you don't see a lot of big rushing streams
very
often.
In
fact, there's these big canyons, and they're subject to flash floods, like intense flash floods. In fact, we walk down a lot of these canyons, like bushwhack down these crazy flash, these places where when it does flood, it really gets intense. But the rest of the time, it's bone dry. You can kind of see the ancient footprint of flash
Did
flooding.
you do this with your lovely wife?
My lovely wife. Okay, so there's a lot of partners out there. I'd say a lot of men generally, and certainly it goes both ways. There's 3 women on our trip, to give you an idea. But there's a lot of men who kind of long for this space to go out and challenge. There's man versus man. There's man versus himself, and there's man versus nature. And many of us never get that man versus nature, that opportunity to really, we're inoculated from that. So we don't often have, you do as a big wave surfer and stuff, like we crave that man versus nature aspect. And so Kiana knows how much I love that. And so she sent my ass out there for my birthday.
Cool.
She gifted me a week out there. And I just would encourage it as a gift. It's obviously not the cheapest gift, but it's in terms of meaningful engagement, I felt so challenged by it, and at the same time, this is what nature does. It's so beautiful. You feel both the humbling hand of God, like pushing your little forehead into the dirt, and you also feel this sense of belonging that is transcendent. Like you belong to all this. You make sense in all this. And we had times where we were off on our own, where we got to really just kind of revel in that and slow the noise, and I just found myself just so happy just to listen to the birds and all that stuff.
There's the challenge that feel alien. There's the challenges where you're like, that was really hard, and I felt no sense that I had ever been there before, or anyone in my past had ever been there before. being overwhelmed by Slack messages.
Yeah.
That's like the alien challenge. I don't think anyone who's overwhelmed by Slack and email has ever felt like, yeah, it was hard, but I felt my ancestors within me. You know, it was like I'd been here before.
I was made for this.
Yeah, the Slack pings just made me feel this. It connected me with my lineage, you know?
No.
And it was hard, but I made it through and I responded to every single one by 2 a.m. There's that. Which is a very real anxiety, you know, like digital overwhelm.
Yeah.
And some days we have those, you know, those moments where we're like, I don't know if I can make it through this. This is so fucking intense. Just the sheer velocity that technology comes at us. But those are alien feelings. Like the anxiety isn't deep, whereas the anxiety that comes from nature, there is something that's familiar about it when you can make it through the initial pain, and that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's an immediacy to it, and it just distills the. I mean, there was no point in thinking about Slack messages. Like there was enough to do, and you're busy. That's the other thing. Survival takes work. Like it's not. I mean, I think once you get up and going, it's probably easier. Like we couldn't have done a 1 week where we gathered all of our food, for example. Because there's like an economy of scale to gathering food where you get to know the place, you get to track the deer, you get to, you know, so it really takes time, which is why that show alone is so challenging. You know, start off with nothing and go.
Yeah. I mean, it's even on hunting trips that I go on, it's such a massive advantage to go to one spot multiple times, even if you're going to the same spot year after year, because you get to know it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the real benefit of what hunting guides offer is knowledge of the place.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why people pay for hunting guides. So like they know where the animals are very likely going to be. So as you say, I mean, you get to know a place better as the days go on.
What do you think about those places like ranches that are set up where they like flush out the pheasants and you just shoot them kind of thing?
I think that it's not really for me, but there are different like levels to what I think we're talking about and what America generally knows as like Cease of the Lion, right? Where it's like a fenced area where you're going to shoot an exotic species that you're not going to eat, which also happens a lot in Texas, right? So there are a lot of these areas, you know, these outfits where they're basically like in-fenced and you're guaranteed to be able to shoot the zebra. I'm not into that. I think that it's like, it's so far away from anything I've ever done hunting and so far away from anything anything anyone I know does, really. On the other side of that, the far other end is public land hunting for a big game animal, where it is so goddamn hard.
Flummoxing.
I mean, you can spend weeks out there and
Yeah,
barely
just
see
nothing.
an animal, right?
Yeah.
So that too, if you're a kid, you want to get into hunting, like it's going to be pretty hard to keep any retention if the only kind of hunting you're doing has a 4% success rate, right? So there are things between that, right? Where it's like, hey, it's a private ranch where there are animals on it. You're not guaranteed to get an animal. I just went on a pig hunt in Central California on a ranch and we didn't see any pigs. Like they just weren't around. You hunted for 3 days.
Did you get your money back?
I mean, it was this was just had an in to it, right? But I think that there's just a gradation of experiences as a hunter, and a gradation of challenges. And the better people get, the more challenged they generally like to be. But yeah, I also don't think you can like just knock private outfits as a whole, because some of them are basically like big enough that it's public land.
Right.
But you just have a little bit better odds, and the odds are improved generally because you have someone there who knows the area a little bit better.
Makes me wonder if they had like, this is weird, but like if you could show up at a slaughterhouse and like offer to slay your own dinner.
Yeah. 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 Hey, can we
Tie us back to our food system a little more.
Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah. I wonder.
I've slaughtered animals. It's
have you?
It's intense.
What was the animal that you slaughtered?
My friends are homestead farmers,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a time they had raised this cow, and it was a beautiful cow and a
Sure.
dear friend, and it came time to slaughter the cow, and so
Yeah.
I helped with that, and yeah, it was intense. It was a lot.
You shoot it?
Shot it in the head, and then slit its throat.
Yeah.
So both,
The same time.
pretty much. Yeah, it was, it was shocking.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it definitely can be. I think the first animal you kill, it can be, and so I'm thinking of the scene from Me, Myself, and Irene where Jim Carrey hits the cow and then tries to kill the cow by shooting it, and the cow won't die. So
God.
he shoots it. Oh God! All right,
God.
let's go to a different subject.
Yeah, something else entirely.
Chris, tell me about your experience buying a home.
Oh, you mean the worst thing that's happened this decade?
This decade. That's what I was asking
So,
about. That's
yeah.
where I was initially prompting you with that question. So let's go to
So
that.
you've heard some of the story. Well, so I think it's valuable just as a tale of, this happened to me. It certainly didn't happen to every homeowner, but most homeowners have their challenges, right?
Sure.
But we had a particular challenge where the first night in our house, we were really excited. Bought a house outside of LA and all excited to move up there. The first night in the house, there's some rain. It's not a ton of rain, but Kiana goes over and just happens to feel the carpet by the edge of the floor of the master bedroom.
This is right after you bought the house.
It was the night we got the keys. We're all excited. There's a gift basket from the realtor and stuff. And we and the floor was wet, and so the rug was wet around the outside of the room. And we had been fleeing a house with mold in Topanga here in LA, and so that was very bad. Bad enough that immediately, tears and oh God, did we buy? This is bad. But it proceeded to get worse and worse and worse until we'd basically unwrapped the entire house down to the studs. The house that we thought was new, because it was flipped. It was bought by a realtor. They flipped it. They just put lipstick on a pig. They covered things up and did a horrible job of it. And we didn't see it because it was all under siding and roofing. And
What would you have done differently?
I would have probably. This is a great question. I mean, no, I would know your inspector. I would have kicked the tires a lot more. I mean, knowing it now, I would look for water. I mean, water intrusion is the worst thing that could happen to a house, as far as I'm concerned. And so, looking for, or open fire possibilities, I guess. But I would kick the tires on everything related to water around the house. So I would make sure to check the foundation, check the stucco, check where it hits the bottom, the weep screed, make sure that that's there, so just really make sure the house is watertight, and whatever I needed to do or replace or whatever, pay for that. Certainly mold screenings, get really good mold screening.
Beforehand.
Pay for it while you're in inspection, all that. And there was stuff that we didn't find. A lot of it, though, we couldn't have found, it was just buried in this creaky old house that this old weirdo who fancied himself there was a guy who had the house before us who had kind of done a lot of DIY on
Sure.
it. It was crazy, and he was not a builder, so we're uncovering a lot of that now.
So then you stuck, having bought this house.
Yeah.
You need to tear the whole thing down.
Well, so we had to tear the master bedroom and bathroom are tear down still.
Mm-hmm.
We've fixed that. We spent $200,000 fixing the house back to a 1-bedroom, 1 bath. We bought it as a 2-bedroom, 2 bath. So do that math, right? So we lost a bedroom and a bath and $200,000 getting this place just to be a viable home.
Wow.
And we are, so we're still, trying to be able to fix the back bedroom. and in all that, just discovered problem after problem. So it's been a rough ride. Here's what I didn't know. This is logical but something you might not realize. So we got to the point where we're like, okay, well, we'll just like, our mortgage is for $800,000. If the house then suddenly is worth $600,000, we thought, okay, well, maybe we can just pay off that $200,000 differential over the next whatever years and treat it like it's like a mortgage for the $200,000. It's like, no, that's not. You have to pay that $200,000 back because there's no house there to leverage the mortgage against.
Sure.
So you have to come to the table with the $200,000 to sell. So we couldn't sell our house at a loss because we didn't have $200,000 to sell our house.
Wow.
So now we're stuck with it and we have to fix it. Which brings up our learning for the day, which is not, there's these situations in life where you can't go around. You must go through. And to recognize yourself in one of them is such an act of like, it's such an act of fuckery that you end up in these situations. But it was the same thing that, that night in the woods. It's like, the sun's not coming up any quicker. There's no one. I could go talk to the instructors and wake them up, but that's not happening, right? I knew where they were. You got to go through. Like, this is a go through moment. And Kiana and I, my wife, have been in this go through this year moment, and it's been a full year. And there's been no other way. But in that commitment come all the gifts of like passing through the portal and being in the threshold moment and fighting for your life and fighting for your partner and for our kids to have a home that's safe. And so it's been like the struggle of my lifetime this year. I know it sounds crazy, but a house can do that to you. If
Sure.
you don't have your most basic needs met.
I was at your wedding this year, and you said something that I think about very often in one of your vows. And I think the reason that it stuck with me is because it was so not flowery language, which vows tend to be. And it was, I've been through some really hard times with you, and I've handled them better than I've ever handled previous hard times. I was like, fuck, that's just a real, that's like the foundation of love. Like when the rubber meets the road, it's like, how are you handling the shitty fucking time?
Yeah.
And then like, are you handling it any better with this person around? Like
should be,
but,
absolutely should
but
be.
It struck me like as how do you handle the fuck situation with that other person?
Yeah. There's I forget whose method this is, but I love the idea that you kind of rate yourself 1 to 10. I'm at a 6. You're at a 4. Okay, I'll lend you a little help. Or if somebody's at a 10, I'm resourced. She's at a 3, like show up more that day, so keeping open line of communication about where you're at. And Kiana and I, it was week to week, day to day. At least one day a week I was in breakdown mode here. We're coming up with $10,000 a week out of thin air to pay these contractors in cash. And then a contractor, big life lesson. We hired a contractor on a recommendation that has since run away with $25,000 of ours. And it's basically irretrievable. Like if a contractor runs away with your money, you can take him to small claims court. That's like a limit of $12,500 in California, something like that. Any more than that, you're going to have to get a lawyer. It's going to cost you that much to get that money back. So it's not worth it. And unless they have money to pay, you can go after them and get, fine. But chances of that contractor having the money to pay you back are not great. And so we ended up with a contractor who took money from us up front. I feel like a dope just saying this stuff, but we paid him money up front. Don't do that. There's a limit to how much money they can ask for you up front. Make sure you know what that is. He took way more than that. We paid him because we just were trying to get out of our situation. We were kind of, fighting for our lives a bit. And, and he just kept asking for more money, and there was progress being made, but it was all like demo work on the house. And then, we realized that his couple of his workers came to us and said he's not paying them. And we're like, oh shit. And then sure enough, we had to fire him. He promised to give us our money back and never has.
did.
So we're going to take him to small claims court and whatever, get back half of that.
Yeah. Fuckers.
But it's just, and then you just have to this is the question. Is there people that have wronged you to the degree? I mean, most of us have these people in our lives. I don't have many of them, to be honest. Like, this was really hard for me.
Sure.
To have someone who I like, I trusted, and I'm a, genteel kind of guy. So we had what I thought was a good relationship. I thought I was giving him a chance. And he just took our money at a time where, that was the worst thing that could happen to us. So I'm so mad at him. And it was like processing the anger towards this man. Still, like, it still gets my gut. I've made some peace with it, but like, how do you forgive someone in real time who's, and there's a degree to which it's useful, right? It's motivating me to go to the courthouse in Ventura, which is like not in the top 1 million things I ever want to do.
Right. It's the question of like, at what point is it no longer serving you?
Yeah.
Because there are people who are just kind of little bitches, which you are not. And those people are just like, oh, well, it's all good. And they just kind of get walked all over for the rest of their lives. And then there's the people who will kill the guy.
Right.
And that's
right. Which
also who you're
any
not.
Any reasonable person thinks about that.
But you're thinking about it exactly. I'm thinking about it.
I may or may not have Googled what if I left an air tag in his truck so that I could follow him home so that I could serve him papers, not so that I could kill him. I don't want to kill anybody.
Right.
But it's
but then at a certain point, okay, you've done everything that you can do, whether it's small claims court, and then how long do you hold on to the feeling of hatred? And is it useful to hear? I mean, I'm gonna hot take. I believe it's very useful to hold on to the hatred, but you redirect it to other problems that you need to solve in your life, right? Like, Michael Jordan's key to success was that he held grudges.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like, he would make up grudges and then go out with the next game and crush it.
But do you think that's a universal motivator, like that anger? Because I don't know that I'm motivated by that as much.
Yeah, I think it's a personality.
I don't have an axe to grind, or like I tend to be more motivated by like being drawn forward than being pushed away. But that might just be my.
I'm motivated to some extent by anger and by small grievances in the past of people who have not believed in me, or I've perceived that they didn't believe in me, even if they did.
Oh, screw them.
But
you'll show them.
Yeah, so those thoughts will ping into my mind for sure, and it can be motivating. But those thoughts tend to run away really quickly, and they forebode joy. Right. So when it comes to the work, like if I'm like, fuck these people, like, or fuck that, I'll show him.
It's not good for creativity, I don't think. But
I think that it is a little bit off-putting to anyone around you. Like, when I have that energy, I'll give an example, I have a book coming out this year, and it's the biggest project I've ever undertaken. I'm so terrified that it's going to be a failure. I have a few motivating people from years past who kind of thought I couldn't do it. And I'm asking for favors from a lot of friends now.
Yeah.
You being one of them, like, hey, will you help me with marketing around this? And whenever I come to those friends with the anger and fear that it won't work, they tend to want to help a little less.
Yeah,
there's some
true.
kind of like, Chris, I need your fucking help,
But
bro.
maybe, right.
So in those moments, it's good for me to be like, Kyle, just take a fucking exhale.
And this is why painters are so like grumpy, because they can get away with it. They want everybody to go the fuck away.
Yeah.
Like Picasso,
Right.
painting Guernica and like probably just fuming the whole time.
Yeah. But I think that it's good to know how to just find the laugh in it. Like for me, that is the fastest way. I mean, we talk about like anger and forgiveness, but like for me, it's humor and lack of humor.
Yeah.
Right. That's, if I can just find the humor in it, then I'm like, okay, I'm back in the creative buoyancy.
And I will say that too, not having access to, there's this principle of being that when you get in partnership, my partner's really good at this dialogue of intimacy. Like, how do we connect with each other on a more intimate level? That's her work. Right. And so I've engaged in a lot of that. And one of the things that keeps us from, that keeps women often scared of men is when men don't have access to their anger. Reason being, it's in there. And is it going to come out in an unpredictable, scary way? Or is it going to come out in a way that you have control over because you know how to deal with your anger? Yeah. And so being familiar with my anger, I think, is something that I've had to work on, because I was one of these nice guys my whole life. I wanted to make everybody happy and cozy and comfortable. And so to actually, I'm kind of going back on what I said, but like, I do think there is a usefulness of for me having found this anger. And I think there's, part of this butthead's role in my journey was to help me to like contend with the part of me that can be ferocious. To begin to trust it.
Sure.
Because I know what to do with it a little more.
And let's talk a bit more about that. How do you engage with the anger? Like, what's the situation? Okay.
I mean, hiking for like 12 hard miles in the hot desert sun, and then doubling that, like that's a good way to contend with anger. That's a good way to process that same ferocity. I certainly think that there's like embodied practices that are really good. That's why I love breathwork. Breathwork's an incredible release, or just a way to move stuff. So moving into anger and moving through it, you can put on music that will channel that. Screaming and yelling, dude. I mean, screaming in your car. Yeah. Super reasonable to do that. Yeah. As much as you need to do that. Just don't do it, pull over or hit autopilot,
Fucking screaming in the car
dude,
is so fun,
so
dude.
So much in the car all the time.
Good.
I know. I wonder if it'd be fun to just kind of see other people doing that. If someone saw me.
What if you were in traffic and you were screaming in your car, and then you looked over at someone else and they looked at you and they started screaming in their car too, and you just start screaming together?
That'd
be a beautiful one. Yeah. Let it out. Yeah. What's the ad? And it's just like, let it out.
Let it out.
Yeah.
It's like that REM song. Remember the video that the REM song, Everybody Hurts, and it was at traffic and everybody stopped at traffic, and then you just look in all the cars and you see people and they're all like in their own process. It's pretty beautiful, but like kind of the sweet version of that. I think it should be like, and then get like a Megadeth song.
There's a great use in hardcore music too. Fucking Pennywise, Metallica, some real loud fucking shit,
scream rock.
Yeah, some of the scream rock, dude. Like,
I mean, headbanging, dude. You're just banging your head around. You're just like shaking up your thoughts. It's good for you.
I read an article about Spotify. This is a great story in the New Yorker about how Spotify's algorithm, part of the story at least, is the whole goal of Spotify is to get you to keep listening for as long as possible. So slow, non-vocal background music is what gets people to listen longer. So a lot of the playlists will subtly veer. You'll notice it, and some of it's just AI music that they've created into this like slow doldrumy shit that you can just listen to forever, and it puts you in this kind of like soporific mood.
Yeah, just
And
slobbering
I
at your
fucking
desk.
hate it,
Yeah.
dude. The Spotify Discover Weeklies
Yeah, it's
are
nasty.
none of it's angry.
Yeah.
None of it's angry. Dude, I've never had a Spotify Weekly angry mix.
Ugh, not to mention the royalties that are not being paid to real artists.
The CEO of Spotify is wealthier than any artist in the history of the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Isn't that crazy?
I love your stats.
Love those stats. All right. I wanted to ask you this before you take off on this little trip. What's a skill that you have submitted that you are bad at?
Submitted?
Like you've just I am below.
right,
I am
right.
I've admitted.
I get that I'm bad at this.
I get that I'm bad at this.
There's a couple. I have something called central tremor, okay, which means that my hands shake at all times. This I'm reinvestigating. This is the first time I've said this aloud in a while. And I'm like, central, is that a real thing? But I think my physician told me that when I was young, and it means my hands shake all the time.
Okay.
And I have a little bit less dexterity. So I'm a guitar guy. Like I grew up playing guitar. I can play campfires. I rock the campfires, man. Yeah.
I bet.
Like
I didn't know
killer
that.
Campfires.
God,
Yeah.
sexy.
But there's a limit to how much I can play. So I can't get beyond a certain, there's an asymptote to playing guitar, and it's way lower than I wish it was.
Sure.
And so it's just like that is a limit. I'm also colorblind.
Right.
So I'm a filmmaker, which is hilarious. Turns out a lot of color. I think Christopher Nolan might be colorblind. A bunch of directors are colorblind actually, which is kind of sweet because I can't do anything like color correction or lighting or stuff like that.
So what are you seeing right now?
I mean, this is actually, let me clear this up with your audience of billions, because it's very important that people stop. I think we should stop using the word colorblind.
Right.
I'm not colorblind. It's not like, that'd be like if you're tone deaf and you can't hear music. Like I can see colors. I see all the colors. What I struggle with is reproducibility maybe. So like, I mean, it's not even that. It's like I see things as though I had a light pair of sunglasses on.
Okay.
Let's call it that. Like, or you desaturated or something.
Sure.
So there's some edge cases with colors where...
Yeah, you
and
see everything in sepia tone.
Yeah, just a little bit. And I would never say that because I see colors beautifully and brilliantly in my own mind. But, you know, when I see the like comparison, this...
It's like you've only had sex with a condom on.
Yeah. Oh, man. Really? That stinks. I guess it is like that. I don't know. Well, I can't imagine colors being more brilliant. Do you know the colorblind adaptation?
No.
Why it exists?
No.
So this is cool. All right, this should be the headline. Colorblind basically means, as I understand it, the processing power of your eye is devoted more towards like gradations within certain colors.
Okay.
So like the range might not be as great, but within things like greens and browns, I can actually see more tonal differentiation. Interesting, especially because this adaptation is stuck around in men specifically. I think it's 8% of men for, it's like 1% of women. So mostly in men, it's a adaptation that would allow you to see camouflage better.
Wow.
So it's a hunting adaptation.
That's fascinating.
So that's why it's stuck around. Is because I actually see a deer like in the woods better than somebody with full color vision.
I'm gonna take you hunting.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, and it's mostly a male thing.
It is. Yeah.
So
by a factor of like 20 times or something.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Have mushroom trips ever changed your?
Yeah, dude. Actually, it's kind of like if I'm redlining, like I see as many colors as I can, and then you do a mushroom trip or something, and it's just like blows the top line.
Sure.
And I'm in a bowl of Fruit Loops all of a sudden, and yeah, everything.
So I've heard this that from someone else who's colorblind who took mushrooms for the first time and all of a sudden could see colors in a way that they never could before.
Yeah, but I think that's probably true for you too.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
So I don't think that's I think everybody just
it just raises it up by a factor of 10
totally
every single time.
And then other than that, like at some point, thinking I'm going to be a CEO, like for example, and then you see what CEOs do. I'm not a great visionary. I'm a great I'm a great doer of things. Like if there's somebody who's like has the grand vision like this, I have the way to creatively make that happen. And so I think it's really important to like, if you're not the person with the grand vision, and almost get out of the way or help them. Like, cause there's people with great vision in this world that I would be very happy to help with their vision. And I'm not necessarily the one that's always seeing that great vision. I'm very creative. I have great, great ideas on how to bring those visions to life.
Sure.
So that's a big one. That's a big one that I gave up, thinking that because I'm like, oh, I'm very capable. I should be leading everything. I should be like the CEO. I should be inventing something. It's like, I don't
That's
have
really
to do
cool.
that.
Yeah. That's also a very humble one to say, especially in a culture that values
Totally.
the thing, right? Have you ever seen the YouTube video of the first follower? Right, so it's the guy. There's a TED talk about that shows a guy at a festival dancing, and there's all these people sitting, and then there's one guy who stands up and starts dancing with him, and right after the second guy starts dancing, then a third and the fourth, and all of a sudden there's thousands of people dancing in the span of this 5-minute YouTube video. It's totally worth it to YouTube. Everyone, check it out.
Yeah.
Like first follower guy dancing, but the basic premise being that like the visionary is nothing without.
I'm the first follower, I think.
Yep.
I'm the guy who like sees that guy and I'm like, yo, check this out. This is worth doing. This is worth looking at and like worth paying attention to.
Yeah.
I like being that guy.
I think you have good instincts for who to follow. So I would say that like if and I don't know if there's been any of this, like I have these feelings sometimes, like if you feel like you were too trusting of this contractor asshole, like the fear then is like, am I bad at reading these situations? Which I don't think. I think you're very good at reading people. I think that's one of the things that you're especially good at is like seeing people completely and being able to pull out the really interesting thing that helps them get the idea to the masses. So,
how about you?
The thing that I'm uniquely bad at?
Yeah.
I think that
What do you suck at?
fuck, man. I am really quite below average at doing a bunch of different tasks. Like my brother once called me a racehorse with blinders on.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So if like when people talk about like, oh yeah, I just like had to answer a bunch of texts and then like, oh, I hopped on email and did like the context shifting for me, in like a normal way. I'm not talking about like CEO, like boom, 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 like people that have to do that shit all day long, like average level context shifting for me makes me
like having a bite of a bagel while writing an email.
I can't. I mean,
It's a lot.
Can't. Like, if I'm telling a story at dinner, I
have to finish it.
I have to finish the story before eating a bite of the food. Like, my girlfriend makes fun of me. She's like, if there's a shared plate and I want to make sure Kyle doesn't eat it, I'll ask him about a story and he'll go on a 5-minute story and I'll get to eat whatever I want because he won't tell a story and midway through like eat a bite of the French fry.
It's so funny because I mean I think the way to look for these, right, is to just look at the shadow and of the gift, you know, and your gift clearly is immaculate focus and follow through, and the shadow side of that is like I can't not do that.
I can't eat the French fry while I'm telling a story.
Yeah,
like
totally.
There's no world where I'm.
That's why there's raccoon eyes. You just stare through people at the back of their head.
Fuck, man. Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that's really interesting. Like the things that we're generally worse at are also there's on the other side of that. There's some level of superpower.
Yeah.
That's very insightful.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Totally.
you did a really cool thing on Catalina, which you may have spoken on the pod a little bit, but I'm just super curious how that was for you, because that was a big race starting from your level of training, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was one of the coolest things I did all year. So I think that the guy right before you is someone who's like an expert in these races. So it's called the Otello race, and they're basically triathlons minus the bike plus trails instead of roads, and the swims are in the ocean in potentially really rough conditions. So it's much more of like an adventure. And the guy who I just had on the podcast is like he does these all over the world. They've done them, at Orcas Island, up at Whistler, like very stunning areas. And I enjoyed it for a few reasons. The first was just the training aspect of having a singular goal and focusing on it. I was also training during the domoic acid event in Santa Monica.
What's that?
When all the seals went crazy and started attacking
I don't know about
swimmers.
that.
So there was a heat spell which created a phytoplankton bloom, which essentially made many of the marine animals go crazy for a certain period of time. And the seals got really aggressive, and they started attacking surfers. They started attacking swimmers. It was crazy. It was like a 2-week period. Yeah.
In Santa Monica.
All over Southern California. I'm surprised
Wow.
you didn't hear about this. There was like,
I was in the woods.
dude, there was footage of surfers at the Wedge getting chased out of the water by seals that were like rabid pit bulls.
Oh, I saw. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of
That's
viral
bizarre.
videos. Bizarre, right? So I'm swimming in Santa Monica, and these seals are going crazy, dude. It was like scariest shit, right?
Oh my god.
And it's all done now. The water is really clean now. I also think it's really important to say that like the water through Santa Monica is very clean now, and any bad press that you're hearing about it is basically bird poop underneath the pier.
I did read that. Yeah.
So this is actually it is important to talk about, because right now there's a story that's proliferating that like all the water in Santa Monica is dirty because these organizations are testing directly underneath the pier where all the birds poop. If you go 100 yards down the beach, the water's totally clean. But unfortunately, it's having a hugely negative impact on local businesses on the beach, like surf schools, local restaurants,
Wow.
because everyone just thinks, oh, the water in Santa Monica is dirty. And then there's also this like weird narrative from the fire where people think that because the fire, and it's like, yeah, in the month or two after the fire, I was not going in the water, but now the water's perfectly clean. But unfortunately, that narrative has spread pretty far. So I do what I can to tell people like, no, it's just don't swim right under the Santa Monica Pier and you'll be fine. Like the ocean is beautiful.
Yeah.
Go in it.
It's also better places to swim than that.
Yes.
I would just tell them that anyway.
But yeah, I think that I was, I do well with focus. I do well with a goal ahead of me. I'm just happier that way. I think that there's a certain level of like trying to pretend that I'm not this way that I was in for a long time. Like, why do I need to have a date 2 months out for a pretty intense thing that I'm doing? But like, whenever I set a date a couple months out for a pretty intense thing, I feel way more at home.
Man, I feel like there's a life lesson in just like knowing your carrot. What is the carrot that you're going to dangle for yourself? And once you learn it, just do it. Do it preemptively. Do it as preemptively as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And just...
Mine is like a trip. Like I always need to have a trip somewhere in the world, within 6 months.
I think that having something to look forward to is the key to happiness. straight up, I think that for the elderly too, putting things on the calendar to continue to look forward to life, however small, is a hack.
It's a hack too in relationships, particularly long distance.
Yep.
Always know the next time you're going to see them. Like, just get that before you know. You gotta have that in a relationship.
Yeah.
It's my relationship advice.
That's great advice.
We should probably end on that.
Okay. Chris Keener, you got to go do breath work. Thank you so much for stopping by.
I do.
I love you. You're one of my favorite humans in the whole wide
Oh,
world.
likewise, Kyle. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Very
Appreciate
special
you.
dude.
So
Everyone,
excited for your book, man.
woo! It's going to be great.
It's gonna be great.
Chris Keener. See you later, buddy.
Bye.